They sold her at the edge of the cattle market, where the day smelled of dust and sweat and old iron. The auction pens rang with shouts and laughter, boots scuffing, coins clinking, men bargaining over beasts and broken tools. She stood apart, a thin figure with her hands folded neatly at her waist, eyes pale and unfocused beneath lashes dark with dust. Someone had brushed her hair that morning, too roughly, pulling it back so her face would show, so buyers could see what little there was to see. She had learned long ago that blindness sharpened other senses to a painful clarity. She could hear the way men leaned in when they thought no one mattered, the way their voices dropped when cruelty felt private. She knew who drank too much by the sour bite of breath, who lied by the stutter of boots shifting in the dirt. She knew the market's rhythm, the impatient clatter of hooves, the sudden hush before a sale, the laughter that followed a good deal. Today, that rhythm beat around her like a drum she could not escape. Blind as a bat, one man said, not bothering to whisper. Can't work worth a damn, said another. Pretty enough, though, someone laughed. For a while, she kept her chin lifted. Her mother had taught her that posture was armor. Her father, before the fever took him, had taught her that silence could be a shield. She breathed slowly, counting heartbeats, letting the noise wash past her without taking root. Fear had a smell too, sharp and metallic, and she forced it down. Fear made people careless. Carelessness cost more than pain. They argued over her worth as if she were a sack of grain. Someone mentioned the trouble of guiding a blind girl. Someone else joked about how little guidance she'd need for the wrong things. The laughter cut, but she did not move. Moving invited hands. Stillness made them hesitate, just a little. A memory surfaced unbidden. Her mother's fingers tracing letters into her palm by lamplight, spelling out prayers and promises. You are more than what they call you. You are not what they decide. The memory steadied her breathing as the bidding began, slow and half-hearted, like men throwing stones at a well they knew was dry. $2. Don't bother. 1. The word, 1, fell flat, lonely, and the crowd snorted. Someone spat. Another man shrugged, already bored. She felt the air change then, the peculiar thinning that came when the decision was nearly done. She had learned that sound too, the sigh before surrender. A coin was pressed into a palm that wasn't hers. She heard it clink, bright and final, against another coin. The sound echoed louder than it should have. $1. The price of her life, said by strangers who would forget her face before sundown. Her stomach tightened, but she did not cry. Crying would only sweeten the cruelty. She waited instead, listening for footsteps, for the approach of boots that would tell her everything she needed to know. Heavy boots meant haste. Light boots meant curiosity. Staggering boots meant danger. She prepared herself the way one prepared for cold water, by holding still and bracing. Hands brushed her arm, careless, as someone pushed past to see the next lot. A voice nearby joked about luck and bargains. The sun shifted, warming her cheek, and she wondered briefly if she would feel it again tomorrow, wherever she was taken. Wonder was dangerous. She pushed it away. When the moment came, she would stand. She would walk when told. She would remember the path by counting steps, by marking turns with breath and sound. She would survive. Survival, she had learned, was not bravery. It was stubbornness dressed as calm. She did not know yet that the coin would be dropped back into the dirt. She did not know that silence was already moving toward her, slow and deliberate, cutting through the market noise like a shadow at noon. All she knew was the waiting, and the way her heart beat steady, defiant, refusing to break even as the world decided she was worth no more than $1. The boots stopped in front of her, close enough that she could feel the shift of air against her knuckles. They did not shuffle. They did not hurry. That alone was strange enough to draw her attention from the noise behind her. These boots carried weight, but not impatience. Leather creaked softly, well-worn, familiar with long days and longer nights. She tilted her head a fraction, listening. No voice followed, no crude joke, no barked command. The silence stretched, uncomfortable at first, then curious. Around them, the market continued its chaos, men calling prices, animals lowing, laughter rising and falling, but right there, in that small pocket of space, the noise seemed to bend around the quiet. Someone snorted nearby. You buyin' or just starrin'? A man called out. Still, the stranger said nothing. She felt it then, the prickle along her arms that came when someone truly looked at her. Not the way men measured or appraised, but the way a person took time, as if seeing required patience. Her pulse quickened despite herself. Silence could mean many things. It could mean danger gathering itself. A hand reached for her. She stiffened, every muscle ready, but the touch never came abruptly. Fingers brushed the back of her hand first, a question rather than a claim. Calloused, warm, steady. No grabbing, no pressure, just contact, deliberate and careful, like someone approaching a skittish horse. She swallowed. The man curled his fingers around hers, not tight enough to trap, not loose enough to slip away. The way he held her felt like a choice, not a right. The crowd noticed then. Voices quieted, curiosity blooming like weeds. Well, someone muttered, "You talkin', her." The man's thumb rested against her knuckle, rough but reassuring. She could smell him now. Leather, sun, a faint trace of tobacco and clean sweat. No liquor. That mattered more than she wanted to admit. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, carrying easily without effort. It sounded like wind over stone, worn smooth by years of saying little. "You're not for sale," he said. The words did not strike like thunder. They settled, heavy and sure, sinking into the space between heartbeats. For a moment, she thought she had misheard. People said many things at markets, promises and lies dressed in confidence. But this was different. A laugh broke out, sharp and mocking. "She's already sold," someone said. "Cost $1. The man released her hand just long enough to bend. She heard the faint scrape as he picked something up. Then the unmistakable sound of metal hitting earth. The coin landed near her feet with a dull thud, swallowed by dust. "Keep it," he said. "Or don't. Makes no difference." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Someone cursed under their breath. Another spat. Deals undone were bad luck, and bad luck made men uneasy. "She ain't worth trouble," a voice warned. "Blind girl's a burden." The cowboy's grip returned to her hand, firmer now, not to restrain but to steady. "So is a conscience," he replied quietly. "Yet here we are." Her breath caught. She had learned not to hope. It made the fall harder, but something in his voice cracked a door she'd sealed long ago. He did not speak over her, did not talk about her as if she were absent. His thumb pressed once against her skin, a small, grounding gesture, as if to say, "I'm here." "You're here. Can you walk?" he asked her directly. No one had asked her that all day. "Yes," she said. Her voice surprised her, steady, clear. "If you tell me where." The corner of his mouth lifted, just enough for her to sense it in the warmth of his presence. "I will." He turned slightly, angling his body so she could follow the change in sound. "There's a post 3 steps ahead. We'll go left of it. Ground's uneven." He described the world as if it mattered she knew it. As if her footing mattered. With each word, the market felt farther away, its cruelty dulled by something stronger, attention. As they began to move, a man stepped into their path. "You walkin' away from a bargain," he sneered. The cowboy stopped. "No," he said, voice still calm. "I'm walkin' toward one." The man scoffed but stepped aside. She walked with her head high, counting steps as he guided her, trusting the quiet certainty in his hand. For the first time since morning, the waiting ended, and in its place rose something unfamiliar and dangerous, relief. She did not know where he was taking her. She did not know why he had chosen her. But as the market noise faded behind them, she knew one thing with absolute clarity: the silence beside her was not empty. It was protective. By the time they reached the edge of the market, the noise had thinned to a distant hum, like insects trapped behind glass. The air changed first. She felt it on her skin, cooler, cleaner, carrying the open scent of grass and horse. Gravel replaced packed dirt beneath her boots, each crunch a small assurance that they were leaving something behind. "There's a step down," he said, giving her a heartbeat to adjust before guiding her forward. His hand remained at her elbow now, a steady point of reference. He never pulled. He waited for her weight to settle before moving again. She matched her pace to his, surprised by how natural it felt. People often hurried her, impatient with her careful steps. This man moved as if the world had all the time it needed. When they stopped, she heard the soft huff of a horse, the gentle stamp of a hoof. Leather creaked as he shifted. "Her name's Mercy," he said, as if introducing a friend. "She won't spook. I'll lift you when you're ready." "Tell me what you're doing," she asked quietly. "I will." And then he did, each motion described before it happened, each pause given room. When his hands finally lifted her, they were strong but respectful, keeping her balanced, never too close. The saddle felt solid beneath her, familiar from a childhood long ago, before darkness closed in completely. He mounted behind her, leaving space, reins loose. She felt the horse step forward, slow and smooth, and the rhythm lulled the tightness from her shoulders. With every stride, the market slipped further into memory. They rode in silence for a while, the kind that wasn't empty but full of small truths, the wind shifting her hair, the creak of leather, the steady breathing of a man who did not feel the need to fill the quiet with words. When he finally spoke, it was to give her choices. "There's work where I'm headed," he said. "Not easy, but honest. Supper's warm, bed's clean, you keep your name, you leave if you want." She swallowed. No promises of rescue, no debts, just facts, laid out like a map she could choose to follow or not. "Why?" she asked, because the question had weight. He considered it. She could hear the pause, thoughtful, unhurried. "Because the world takes enough," he said at last. "And because I saw you standing like you hadn't given up, even when you had every reason to." Her throat tightened. She turned her face slightly toward the sound of him. "I'm Ada," she said, offering her name like a truce. "Ada," he repeated, as if committing it to memory. "I'm Eli." They rode until the sun dipped low, warmth fading into evening. When they reached his place, she sensed the openness, the wide space, the way sound traveled farther. He dismounted first, then helped her down, keeping a hand at her back until her feet found the ground. He described the house as they walked, the porch rail, the worn step, the door that stuck a little in the winter. Inside, the air smelled of wood and soap. He guided her hand to the table, to a chair, letting her learn the room by touch. Supper was simple: beans, bread, something stewed that filled the space with comfort. He ate slowly, matching her pace, and when she spilled a little water, he passed a cloth without comment. No sighs, no impatience. Later, he showed her a small room. "You can make it yours," he said. "Or not, up to you." She stood in the doorway, fingers resting on the frame, feeling the grain of the wood. The quiet here was different from the markets, a quiet that listened back. She felt tears come then, unbidden, sliding down without shame. "Thank you," she said, because the words mattered. He did not tell her she was welcome. He did not say she owed him anything. He simply nodded, as if gratitude was a bridge, not a leash. "Rest," he said. "We'll figure tomorrow out tomorrow." When he left her alone, she sat on the bed and breathed, letting the day settle. She had not been saved by a grand gesture or a loud promise. She had been seen, chosen, given back her name and her time. Outside, a horse shifted, a night bird called. Ada lay back and smiled, not because the darkness had lifted, but because within it, she had found a place where she could stand, unafraid, and be known.